Hello, everyone. Welcome to Man Cave Movie Night. As you saw by the name of this episode, we're going to be talking about House of the Dragon today and probably some other spin-offs as well. And I think that we would all feel like there was a pretty big void in this episode if we didn't talk at length about the greatest of spin-offs, Young Sheldon.
Of course.
An untraditional spin-off. Generally, a spin-off will take maybe a side character or a concept from the show and kind of develop that into an entire thing. But this show is amazing. It's innovative, it's different. It takes the main character of another show and says, I wonder what his very difficult childhood as a neurodivergent child in a society that does not have the facilities to aid that and give him the resources that he needs to progress comfortably.
Wait, is this House of the Dragon or Young Sheldon?
Young Sheldon.
Oh, okay.
So,
because House of the Dragon has a pretty similar,
But the reason is because House of the Dragon came out after Young Sheldon, and they saw that was popular, so they kind of pivoted.
So it's
That's
a little
the
bit
same
of
with the birthing scenes. Young Sheldon infamously has about 5 or 6 birthing scenes per season.
Per season.
So House of the Dragon tried that as well, and they did it.
Yeah.
They did it all right.
They did do it pretty well.
Yeah.
Not quite as good as
you were
Young
saying.
Sheldon. Okay.
No. Yeah, it's okay. I just thought that if you guys wanted to share maybe some feelings that you had about Young Sheldon, kind of just round table style, what it has meant for you in your life.
Of course.
Yeah.
I can start. I already
please.
did some, but I just think that Ian Armitage has an amazing performance as Young Sheldon in this
Yes, he does.
series that takes place in East Texas, focused around his family. His father, who actually in canon of Big Bang Theory has passed away already. We get to see that relationship between the both of them. His best friend, Tam.
Tam. Shout out to Tam.
Yeah, shout out Tam.
His grandmother, who made an appearance in Big Bang Theory, also making an appearance in this show.
Played by the same
just all
actor, of course.
I believe it is the same actor, actually.
I was stating it. I know.
Oh, okay, great.
Well, yeah. I mean, once you've seen 7
Once you've
seasons,
seen, yeah.
Right. Sheldon starting a religion of mathology. Just basically traveling through all of these different moments that were hinted at, but never really fully explored in the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
It just means a lot to me that we have something for the fans that really can kind of expand our world and our understanding of Sheldon and the world that he grew up in. So,
totally. I mean, I'm obviously envious because I don't have my life narrated by Jim Parsons.
right.
But, I mean, so outside of that, my life was very similar to Young Sheldon's. I was bullied. I had a jock brother and a homie sister. And, you know, the pressures of me being just a genius in my small hometown, while my brother, I mean, kind of I don't want to say dumb, but very focused on athletics and more popular. It was very hard to compete and have that pressure. And so you just never see that. You just never see that kind of relationship so accurately presented on the small screen. And I don't know, it really touched me.
For 7 whole seasons, too. It's
For
really
7 whole seasons,
really
yeah.
awesome that they've gotten. I just wanted to thank you guys for sharing these facts that I, too, know and understand about the show that I love so much.
Totally.
And just so everyone else can hear these really exciting things. My favorite part of the show that was always exciting was when Jason Alexander's George Costanza showed up on the show, and he kind of shared some of his insight as his friend Jerry Seinfeld had been murdered by his other friend, Cosmo Kramer, and just kind of the residual psychological effects that had on George Costanza. And so seeing his relationship with a young Sheldon was just really helpful for me and my relationship with my much older friend who was also unfortunately involved in an accident where all of his best friend died, were killed by his other best friend. And so, yeah, it's just really, really personal, and it's a great touch to kind of see that presented again, on the small screen for 7 whole seasons. I can't wait for the sequel show, which is a real thing. That's happening.
Sheldon.
No, it's another it's actually a spinoff of Young Sheldon that takes place in the future.
Embryo Sheldon.
Yeah, well, it's the future.
Oh.
But in between, it's before Big Bang Theory and after Young Sheldon, about some characters that are present in Young Sheldon and their journey raising a child. That is not a lie. That's
Sheldon.
a real show that's happening.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, I have no idea what it's called, but it's
That's a shame.
Dang.
That's great.
CBS.
I mean,
Yeah, it's awesome. I was sharing that because of how excited I am.
Spin-off of a spin-off has never been a bad idea. So thank you guys so much for sharing all of that. Thank you to the audience for sharing with us this moment of honor and solemnity for the greatest spin-off of all time.
Yes.
Now let's talk about another one that's okay.
It's fine.
Play the music. What's up, YouTube? My name is Niall Thorley.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Smash that subscribe
Young
button.
Sheldon.
Yeah,
Old
great.
Sheldon.
And this is
Listening
Man
us.
Cave Movie Night. This week we are talking about House of the Dragon. I think just by the nature of some of the questions we've prepared, we're also going to be talking about spin-offs in general, but I want to just kind of kick off. I just barely finished it. By barely, I mean
Couple
a
weeks
month
ago.
ago? Yeah, so pretty recently. Recently enough that I didn't feel the need to watch a recap before doing this episode.
Nice.
Which I might regret. We'll see. But
That should be fine.
before we get into just like the actual stuff that we're going to be, querying to each other, what are your thoughts on House of the Dragon? I finished this about a month ago, but still have not really talked to you guys at all about it. So I'm interested to hear what your opinions are.
Yeah, maybe I should go first because I watched it week to week, kind of.
Oh,
Pretty
cool.
I watched it when it came out.
cool.
That is very cool.
Not really. I watched the first 4 episodes, I think, maybe 3 episodes, week to week. Whichever episode ended with that incestuous brothel scene, that was the last one I watched, and then I was
Yeah,
like,
3
I
or
think I'm going to
4.
pause for a little bit. Unfortunately, the show was coming out at the same time, I think, as The Last of Us. It was either The Last of Us
Pretty
or
close, yeah.
something like
that
Mandalorian or
sounds
something
right.
like that.
Right, something like that.
I just remember there was something else going week to week. I'm pretty sure it was The Last of Us. But a lot of people weren't really talking about it, I feel like. It kind of got overshadowed by another show. And I think that's to the disservice of House of the Dragon. Because it really is great. It's got some incest. Classic Game of Thrones. It's
Yeah,
got
come
some
on.
brutal scenes where you're watching and you kind of want to close your eyes. Classic Game of Thrones. It's got some betrayal. It's got a lot of politics. Classic Game of Thrones. And so I really like the show. I feel like this whole first season was setting up for a cool second season.
Definitely.
And so on. And so I'm very excited as to what comes after this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for the most part, really, really liked it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great installment in the Game of Thrones universe.
Yep.
concur.
I don't think it quite gets as great as the great parts of Game of Thrones, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it ever got as bad as the bad parts of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I think it's right in the median,
Yep.
right in the middle.
Better than most shows, certainly. Better than most drama.
Definitely.
It's no Young Sheldon. Let me clarify. But it is.
That's why we got that.
Yeah,
out
that's
of
why I
the
got
way.
that out of the
ballpark.
way. Yeah, yeah.
They're playing
ballpark.
a different
Totally
sport.
different.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Young Sheldon is playing every sport, and House of the Dragon is playing one. And so, anyway, for
And it's
me, yeah,
terrible.
I remember seeing people posting about this as it was coming out because it was like, hey, House of the Dragon is like the first thing since Game of Thrones ended so poorly, so let's all watch it and hope that it's better than how we remembered this other show. was. And so I actually, I watched it probably like a month or so after it had finished, but I watched it before I watched Game of Thrones.
That's right.
Because I was like, man, I don't want to commit to frickin' 8 seasons. So I'll just watch this one short, it was 8 or 10 episodes. And I was like, this is perfectly manageable. It'll give me an introduction to the world. It's a prequel. And so that's what I did. And I was invested enough to finish the whole thing. And actually the same night that I finished House of the Dragon, I was like, I actually really, really enjoyed this. And I started Game of Thrones the same day that I finished House of the Dragon season 1. So yeah, it sucked me in, and I was really, really enthused by a lot of it. I loved the kind of, it's just like, I love the fantasy worlds in general, and I think this does a really good job of making one that's adults. Like there's, actual real world consequences to things, and there's a lot of actual violence, and the relationships are a lot more, I think, real than Lord of the Rings, which, are my favorite movies, but it's more of like a otherworldly, like fantasy, like, this stuff doesn't really happen. There's certainly personal relationships, but with Game of Thrones, it's a lot more, I think, grounded than some other fantasy stuff. And, in particular,
totally. I agree with everything that you said, period. Next thing. Just kidding. Jared, you said something that I thought I really agree with, which is basically it feels like it's setting up a really awesome second season, which I totally agree. I don't think that I've ever had the experience, because I know there are a lot of different shows where people are like, oh, yeah, first season's not great, but second season it really kind of figures itself out and starts doing what it wants to do. And I don't think that I've ever experienced the first season of one of those shows when the second season doesn't already exist. This is my first experience with it. And not to say that I didn't like this show at all, but it felt like watching the first season just to get through it, to get to the second season, but the second season isn't here yet. And so now, like, when I finished it, honestly, while I was watching it, it felt a little bit like a chore. I would enjoy it every time I was watching it, but like starting it, I was kind of like, okay, I'm doing another one of these episodes. And then I would watch it and love it. Yeah. But by the end of that last episode, I was like, well, I gotta see the next one, and like, that was the first time that I really had that feeling. And, so I'm amped about the next season. Like,
I think I felt the exact same way. Like at least with the first half versus the second half, maybe the more like the adult time jump that happens.
Yeah.
The first 4, I mean, I liked them, but like I said, I just kind of stopped watching it for a couple weeks, let the rest come out, and then binge the rest. But yeah, I just flew through the last handful of episodes because, man, it gets pretty juicy, pretty quick.
It does.
So, I don't know. I definitely, one of my main criticisms is that it almost kind of felt like they took the knowledge that they had that people liked Game of Thrones because it was kind of edgy and they showed stuff you don't usually see on TV. And I feel like they kind of took that and they were like, all right, then we're going to make this show absolutely repulsive a lot of times. And mainly with the birthing scenes. There's a birthing scene either in the second to last episode or the last episode. I can't remember what, but with Rhaenyra.
I think it's the last.
I truly was like vocalizing my displeasure with HBO for putting that in front of me. I was like, you don't need to show all of this for this to have the impact. I was pretty annoyed by that, and I honestly feel like in HBO fashion, the first season's going to be really rough, and then they'll probably dial it back later seasons just because it's like, look at what we're doing, and then it's like, okay, now we're going to actually just focus on a story, Right. Not to say that like Game of Thrones didn't have nasty stuff later on, but first season was like
by far the
brothel scene every other scene, and it was like they tone it back later. So I imagine that it's going to be something similar. But man, some of those scenes, I was really like, what am I doing watching this right now?
Oh boy.
The nice thing about this show as well is that the book that it's based on is out. And so they have a roadmap for how to complete this story and finish it in a satisfying way. Who knows how far in the future they're going to go, if they're going to tie right into, is it Aegon that's right before Baratheon in season 1?
Yeah.
Aegon, the, like 8th
The,
or
But that's
whatever.
going to be...
And
that
Aegon,
would be...
What do they call
the Mad
it?
King.
The Mad King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
Pretty
lots
sure
of
that's
time
Aegon.
jumps, though.
Yeah,
200 years before.
Yeah, it's 200 years. So it may just focus on these characters. And if that's the case, too, I love it, because I really have grown attached to these characters. I love the idea of just the feuding between the Targaryens and the whole idea of... I mean, they bring this up in Game of Thrones as well, but it's the idea of the reason they fell was not necessarily because of anyone outside of them in Westeros. They did it to themselves. Like, they absolutely could have maintained that control and that power, but they were just too prideful, too caught up with all that. And so I haven't read the book. I think it's like Fire and Blood or something like that it's based on.
Sounds right to me.
More or less.
It is.
More or less fire and
more or less Fire and Blood. I know. I think some of those words are in there. I could fact check it, but I don't care enough to. But I am very much looking forward to what they do in the future of this. Also, I wanted to pull up this Ben Wyatt quote about Game of Thrones, because this was what was coming to my mind as I was bringing that up. He says, they're telling human stories in a fantasy world. This was in response to a Donna kind of making fun of him for liking Game of Thrones. He's like, no, it's good because they're telling human stories in a fantasy world. So that's
true.
It's true. Yeah, that's exactly why I think Game of Thrones is so appealing. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the thing I like the most about it is, I mean, with Game of Thrones, this is the same way, but it gets pretty convoluted.
Yeah.
But at the core of all of that chaos is just one goal, basically. It's who's going to inherit the throne. At least with season 1. Mm-hmm. Who is going to sit on the Iron Throne when Rhaenyra? What's his name?
Oh,
No.
Viserys?
Viserys. When he eats it. Is it going to be the brother? Is it going to be his daughter? Is it going to be his first son? Is it, is it going to be, if it is going to be a woman, is it going to be his cousin? Like all of this stuff. Like, and it's so, you can tell everyone has one singular goal. Mm-hmm. Either get onto that throne or make sure that whoever, like, is your kid, whoever's in your family is getting on that throne. And it's all just a big old power grab. And that is so fun. I love that.
I did love that
I just love that everyone's motivation is pretty singular, and everyone's way of going about it is different. And that's Game of Thrones, baby. What I didn't love was the many birthing scenes. Like Niall was saying, I can think of 4.
Yep.
Is there a 5th?
I think there's only 4.
Only 4.
Yeah, only
And
4.
none of them end well.
Only
I'll
4
say that.
quite
None of them end well.
graphic birthing scenes. Oh, jeez, man.
So, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Nice.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's great. So I'll start with my actual question.
Okay.
Excuse me. Which is basically, I think a lot of the time spin-offs can kind of get some heat, especially when they're announced. People say like, well, why? We don't need that, And I like, this is less of a spin-off because there's actually a book that it's based on.
Yeah.
But it's still, for the common person, felt like, oh, they're making a Game of Thrones prequel, know?
Yeah.
And like, that's how it felt. However, it was pretty widely positively received.
Yeah.
So I want to know what you guys think makes this show not feel just like a cash grab off of a like high profit IP. Like, what made this show good, and expanding it out, what makes generally a spin-off valuable to consumers?
Cool. I've got a couple things I want to say about this, actually, because one thing that I think is pretty cool that HBO did was they actually shot a different pilot for a completely different Game of Thrones spinoff show that they canceled. They spent $30 million to shoot this entire pilot, edited it, and, well, let me say, it's cool because they realized they didn't have a show there. It was an interesting idea, but they were like, this isn't enough to warrant having an entire show like this. There's nowhere to go with this. And it was based on The Long Night, like the whole thing with the wall and how like they lost the wall and everything in the north with the all that stuff.
Oh, so so concurrent in Game of Thrones.
No,
time.
It was still a prequel as well.
Oh, right. I'm remembering.
It would have taken years
they
before.
had to retake the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they don't lose it to the White Walkers. They lose it to.
Long Night.
Okay, yeah, got it. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I think it was called Blood Moon. Was the name of the Game of Thrones Blood Moon, and
Sick,
so
man.
a lot of the pilot revolved
something.
around a wedding of a southern house to a northern house, and it goes into the whole history of the White Walkers. And then it just kind of ballooned out of control, and then they just realized there wasn't a lot of story there to tell. And so they abandoned it. That was shot before they shot anything for House of the Dragon. So I think that is, that shows some actual restraint where it's just like they were just making a spin-off show for the sake of making a spin-off show. They were like, after how badly they screwed the pooch with the ending of season 8 of Game of Thrones, they're like, when we come back with Game of Thrones, we need to have something that can sustain itself and that will continue to have people interested. And I would say that is the case with House of the Dragon. Season 2 comes out in June, which 2 years between seasons is never exciting to have to wait that long. But I am genuinely looking forward to getting to watch season 2 when it comes out later this year. So yeah, I think that's just a little bit of the behind the scenes look into. They took more time on this than maybe they would have with other Game of Thrones spinoffs. The unfortunate thing is there's now like 8 other Game of Thrones spinoffs in development, which is just absurd. In various stages of development, they keep announcing more and more, and I'm like, did we not learn our lesson after all, Warner Brothers? And I guess the answer is no, they did not. But for now, I'll continue enjoying House of the Dragon. So,
yeah, I think with this one, kind of like what Lucas was saying, this one did have a story to tell, and for my answer basically is why did this one work where so many other ones seem like cash grabs is there. First of all, there was source material that was worth telling, right?
Yeah.
It's a human story in a fantasy world.
Mm-hmm.
It was baked basically by the same people, so it feels like it's that same consistency, that same texture that we're used to, but it's just a unique story. I think sometimes that does work and sometimes it doesn't, right? Like there are Star Wars shows that they just make and it feels very like they're just trying to make Star Wars. That's it. You just have some planets, have a little fetch quest here or there. It just doesn't feel great. Like it's not a story worth telling, it feels like. But this one has direction. It has exactly what you want out of it. And just characters that you can care about and get behind, right? They focused immediately on the characters, not just, look, it's Game of Thrones. And yeah, they're name dropping some houses here and there, but it's at its core.
Only at the end.
This is a story about this family and the drama here, and telling that story.
Oh, yeah, totally.
A little redundant answer, but...
No, it's great. I totally agree.
So another thing on that is that the Targaryens being in power is something that has been referenced so many times in Game of Thrones that it's not like they're like, honestly, they didn't do a sequel, which is great.
Yes.
It's not like, okay, here's what happened and now there's, sure. There's all sorts of trash that happens. But the fact that they just took, okay, here's a time period that we've talked a lot about, and that honestly, everyone kind of during Game of Thrones, I feel like, whether consciously or subconsciously, wanted to see, because you're focusing on Daenerys that entire time, but she's all alone. She's building an empire out of nothing, but to kind of restore the Targaryens to where they were before. And so you have this whole kind of like, this show provides context for what Daenerys was trying to bring back, which is so cool, you know? And so like, it's like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic kind of, where it's like, okay, you hear about the way this world was established, and Jedi were such a big deal and a huge thing. Mm-hmm. And like the prequels kind of give you some of that, but then you go to like Knights of the Old Republic where it's just like such a massive scale, and you're like, oh yeah, that's super cool. So honestly, I think there's something to be said about a piece of art telling you about the time before, where everything was a certain way and it was so great, and maybe it wasn't actually so great, but that's the way that it's remembered in history, and then going back to experience that. Another example of this is with Critical Role, the Dungeons and Dragons podcast. That world takes place in kind of a post-apocalyptic world from a society that was very advanced in their magical abilities. And then they did a little short series called Calamity, where you get to see that advanced society collapse in this kind of apocalyptic thing. And it's super cool because it provides you context for kind of the world that this thing that you've spent so much time in is taking place in. You get to experience more of like, oh, okay, when that gets referenced, now I have an image in my mind for it rather than just needing to keep track of everything on my own. So I think that these kind of prequels to like a better time, but then showing actually how things were kind of the same, but just with a different packaging, you know, I think it's super interesting, and it is going to be kind of endlessly interesting to people as long as there's a time that makes sense to go to, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think we've also, I mean, with the Star Wars example, we've had a couple different movies that have come from, you know, referenced events that have happened, right? Mm-hmm. Getting the plans for the Death Star, or Han Solo doing his
How does he get his name?
How does he get his name?
Always wanted to know.
I've always wanted to know.
How quickly does he do it? I don't know. We'll find out. Or how distant does he do it?
Yeah.
Do it, I guess. And so I think, I mean, for some, those stories work. Some, they don't. I am pretty neutral about both of them at this point. They have things I like, things I don't like. But, I mean, there's an argument to be made that at least the Solo didn't really need to be made.
No. And
Rogue One
no one
also
really connected with it.
Didn't really need need to be made. But, again,
Rogue One is sick.
But it's good, yeah. It's fun.
Is it good? Hey, who knows?
It is good.
Yes.
It might be.
Well, here's the other thing. Speaking of spin-off of a spin-off, I think, just to answer Niall's initial question of, like, why make a spin-off, I think if you have a good story, like if you have good characters that you're interested in telling a story revolving around, then that is way more important than caring about those characters beforehand. Because in 2022, there was an Obi-Wan Kenobi show and a Cassian Andor show that came out. And you know what? That Cassian Andor show, when I first heard about it, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah,
this is going to be so stupid.
I was pissed.
Why would you make this? This is ridiculous. No one cares about this character. And then, you know what? It's the best thing Disney has made with Star Wars. Honestly, like, it is so good. I just rewatched it a few weeks ago with my mom. It's amazing. Like, and the thing about it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that it's Star Wars or the fact that it's that character. It's just the fact that it's a really well-told story about really interesting characters. And it just happens to be in the Star Wars universe. And I think that's the most important part. And with House of the Dragon, to an extent,
human stories in a fantasy setting.
Exactly. Human stories in a fantasy world. And so with House of the Dragon, too, it's like, yeah, it's, you know who the Targaryens are, but for the most part of the show, there's really only one Targaryen. And so it's cool actually seeing this really interesting story about these characters, and, the rise and kind of fall and Civil War and all that stuff from what we've got so far, and seeing kind of how they develop it. And so it's, just if you have a good human story for a fantasy world, then tell it. Otherwise, don't bother. Don't tell me how Han Solo got his last name. That's
no
not
better way to say it.
Yeah.
Because that's all we want.
That's all we want.
Give us a good story about humans.
Yep.
Put it in the world we love.
It could be aliens, too. But, still human stories.
Yeah.
Humanity in terms of, emotion.
Well, another very popular spin-off show, Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Was it that popular?
Everyone's still hyped about. Everyone's still talking about.
Sorry, it is. Yep.
No one's gotten over how crazy big that budget was.
Yeah.
I have a weekly Rings of Power Club where we just get together to
rewatch and keep talking about it. Yeah.
Guess
no,
what?
not rewatch it, but just
just keep talking about it. How huge the
Those
budget
are characters we like a lot. Characters we love.
Yeah.
In a world that we love. And nobody cares.
is. Yeah.
Nobody cares.
No,
Was it bad? No, I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying
I just don't know. No one cares.
it
Totally.
didn't need to exist.
Objectively,
we're not better off with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think that there are some of those worlds, some of those fantasy worlds, maybe some of those, real worlds who have stories that need to be told or that could be told that would be very cool.
Whoa.
Segway Sigma yapping somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a little nervous when he pointed at me. So
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I started fumbling.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, here's my handoff. Guys, hit me with a sequel or prequel or concurrent story that needs to be told in a world that maybe doesn't have one. Or that could use a second or third.
I got
Basically,
one for you.
this is a pitch question.
Yeah.
I see.
This is a pitch. Here's my pitch.
Okay.
This is a show that I feel like we were so close to having, and then we didn't. I just watched the first episode of the Netflix, The Avatar: The Last Airbender. And
Okay.
it's not good, which is unfortunate.
What?
However, the opening scene felt very promising to me. And then kind of any of the characters talked, and I was like, okay, so the script is not going to be good for this show. But maybe the, execution will
Visuals,
be fine.
some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And the visuals and all that. The show starts, spoilers for episode 1 of Netflix's live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Dang
It
it.
starts off
man, I was
with
really hoping
some-
I get this spoiled.
It starts off with some undercover Earth Nation spies, or Earth Kingdom, spies in the Fire Nation that have recovered some sort of document that is proof that Fire Lord Sozin, I believe at the time, is going to declare war on basically the world, and he's going to start with the Earth Kingdom.
Cool.
And it starts with this chase of Earthbender running through the streets, Firebenders running after him, shooting fire at him. He's putting up rock walls. He's like making the ground liquid with, his earthbending, and they're getting all stuck in it. And then he throws this document off, and he's like, they're going to declare a war, get this to the Earth King. And then the Firebenders kill him. And I was like, right on.
Nice,
This is super cool.
Actual
And then
earthbending, better than the movie?
Yeah, it looked great. It
An
looked
actual murder?
It looked
Killing?
really good. And then it cut to Aang, and I was like, oh, I don't want to watch this anymore. So my pitch for a spinoff, whether it's live action or animated, I don't really care. But give me more of that. Give me the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender when there is no Avatar. Give me basically
The
100 years.
Yeah, give me
Interesting.
the
That'd be
Andor
sick.
set in the 100 Years War of the Earth Kingdom. Maybe it's that whole first season. The Earth Kingdom is preparing for the Fire Nation to attack because the whole plan is that the Fire Nation is making it seem like they're going to attack the Earth Kingdom so that no one is thinking about the air tribe, air nomads. And so I'm messing up all of them so much.
Is that what they're actually called, the air nomads?
Yeah.
Yeah, the air nomads and the air temples. So that's a great first season. Earth Kingdom is like, okay, the Fire Nation is about to attack us. We need to raise our defenses. Gets really kind of political drama about it. And then, end of that first season, they kill all of the airbenders. And you're like, whoa, and you already know that's going to happen. But then what do you not know? Anything that happens after that for the entire 100 years.
Yeah.
So they've got so much to, maybe that's even just the end of the first episode. And then you go from there, But there was this glimmer of hope that show could have been so good. And then I was dismayed to find out that it was actually going to be about the Avatar. So that's
like,
my pitch.
Dang it! The last
Who would have
opening.
thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought remaking beloved animated shows in live action does not ever, even one single time, improve them? Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who could have thought or realized that by now? Certainly not Netflix. But the nice thing is,
Disney
has
knows,
realized.
right?
Yeah, Disney has realized
knows,
that
right?
remaking a beloved classic in live action does.
Well, you
improve
know
it.
what I'm excited about?
Moana too.
Right after Miyazaki dies, you know they're going to start adapting those to live action.
No. It'd be so
they
bad.
better not.
There's no way they don't.
Who owns it?
Yeah.
Or who owns Ghibli? Are they independent or are they owned by another larger studio?
I think they're independent, but they're partnered with HBO Max at least.
Oh,
with
yeah,
Warner
it
Brothers
might be
to
a
have
Warner
all the
Brothers
stuff
thing.
on there. But I don't think they're owned by.
They should make a Bug's Life live action. That'd be cool.
That would be sick.
Yes.
I want these
Well,
bugs
our
to look
technology
more
is
like
finally
bugs.
there. That's the thing, is that our technology is there, so now we can do it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're owned by anyone, which is great.
There you go.
But after
will
Miyazaki's
be.
gone, money's going to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, money's going to start yapping at them.
It's going to go to the highest bidder, and then we're going to get a live-action Howl's Moving Castle that's going to suck.
No, it's going to be good.
Yeah. Well, Lucas, what do you think?
Well, I think actually the nice thing is if you're fiending for Avatar content, there actually is a couple animated movies I think in development
That are coming
up.
Yes.
Movies and or maybe a TV show that are not a remake.
The rumor is that there's going to be like a Kyoshi Warriors series. But all of this is by the original creators.
Yeah, that's
so
the
it's
nice
like
thing.
regardless of what they do, I'm like, okay, great, on board.
And it's
like,
animated.
yeah,
It is animated.
Like,
Yep.
just-
We're fine with that.
Yeah.
Because it's like you could do a live action spin-off, but set in the same world, but just not make it a remake. I don't know why
Yeah.
people don't do that more often. Like that could totally be an interesting way of adapt.
If you're gonna do a live action, that's what you got to do.
Yeah,
if
totally.
You adapt
Don't
any of
remake
them
it,
to-
just do a spin-off. And spin-offs are
But
huge right now.
another thing, the first movie that will be coming out is coming out next year, 2025, and it is following Team Avatar years later,
Yeah,
going up
that's right.
against some other foe. And so it's just going to be same characters, older, and like,
Bro,
okay,
that's
Fire
gonna be
Nation's
so pumped.
kind
Pre-Korra
of taken
type
down,
stuff.
but there's still bad things happening. And so it's going to be just beginning, middle, end, self-contained thing. And I'm pumped about
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think a movie is
Well,
a great way
well-
to tell that story. Like, that's awesome.
What we're going to see with that, I mean, I think it's guaranteed, right? But is these characters that we love that are fighting at their absolute prime, at their maximum, right?
Yep.
We saw them in Avatar. Aang was still learning. He was still
Yeah.
learning how to master those four elements. And now he's been the Avatar for years.
Yeah.
You better believe he's gotten better. One of my favorite episodes of any anime came from a show that I just don't like. And that show is Boruto. Right? It's the sequel series to Naruto. And it shows two characters from Naruto who are now fighting at their absolute maximum and in perfect unison. And that's something we never got in Naruto. But now, because it's a sequel series and they're older, we can show that.
Yeah.
And so I'm really hopeful that's what we get.
So
And
awesome.
That would
if
be
anyone's
cool.
going to do a sequel show for something that's like power-based,
Yeah.
just give us some really, really great
Yep.
combat fight stuff.
Big time.
Anyway, Lucas.
Cool.
sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just kind of bringing up that. I think it would be just so cool to see what happens to Rey after Episode 9 of Star Wars.
yes.
Everyone is
Can't wait.
Can we
yearning
get a trilogy, though?
for a new Jedi Order Rey movie. But I think it should be set 50 years in the future, so she's like 80.
Right. She's old.
She takes a
She's
lightsaber
old.
and she throws it over her shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good
That would
idea.
be pretty good. No, but I do have a Star Wars idea, and that is, I think aside from Andor again, which I've already raved about, the thing most people love about Star Wars is Jedi and lightsabers and the Force and all that stuff, and it is
True.
so disappointing how rarely it is like executed to a level that people are interested in. There's some great lightsaber fights in stuff that people don't love. Even if people don't like Phantom Menace, the last lightsaber fight, you gotta love it.
Awesome.
Duel of the Fates is amazing.
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi doesn't really have any lightsaber fights.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does.
Well,
with the Praetorian guards.
Yes, totally.
Snoke's throne room.
Yep.
Out of here.
That is not technically a lightsaber fight, but they use lightsabers to
two
fight.
lightsabers in that scene.
But they don't...
Fighting other people.
Yeah, fighting other people, not each
who
other.
aren't that good at fighting.
Lightsabers never connect in that movie. I like it, but...
Pedantic the podcast. I have a new name.
Yes. But anyway,
that movie is bad.
I like it more than
Well, that
most
was
people,
the point. He was saying even if you don't like the... Whatever. Keep talking.
My whole thing with this specific pitch now is that people do like lightsabers and they do want lightsaber connection. And so along the lines of what Niall brought up with Knights of the Old Republic, I think something along those lines... I mean, we're getting a little bit of that with The Acolyte coming out later this year. But I think...
Yeah, but that's not going to be good, so...
I certainly hope it's good. I don't think that it will be either. But I think a show not about the Jedi and their power, but about the Sith, when the Sith are the reigning, or at least just the dark side. It's like, that is just so interesting. And telling a human story in a fantasy world about the Sith. But they're not just fully evil, right? The characters we follow are flawed, and they have these warped worldviews or perceptions. And they are they use their red lightsabers, and they're on the dark side of the Force, and they're fully wielding that. And I think that would just be so cool to see just a huge Sith army led by whoever, and just fighting a ton of Jedi. But it focuses on the Sith side of things, and that is not something.
What time period? Kind of in the Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, I think
era?
whenever Sith was in power, I don't know the exact timeline well enough to know specifically when that was, but thousands of years.
A long time ago.
A long
galaxy
somewhere.
far away.
Yeah. Well, I have an idea for the way to pitch that first episode then.
Okay.
Because if you are focusing on the Sith and those are your protagonists, despite the fact that they're bad, you have the first episode, at least the opening of the first episode is just a couple of, I know that this isn't what you wanted, but couple of non-Jedi, just bad guy people, kind of hanging out at a place, chilling. And then planning some evil stuff around a table or whatever. Maybe there's one Sith there. But then just in the corner or out from somewhere, you just hear a yell, and then you just see a blue lightsaber come into the room, and he just starts massacring everybody. Because it's these are the bad guys, so he's doing a good thing. But the perspective that you're getting is, this Jedi just came in and massacred all of these
just
people.
Killing,
And then that's kind of the inciting incident for the rest of the thing is okay, we need to act. They just attacked.
Interesting.
It could be pretty cool to set the Jedi up as the scary, conquering force they're trying to take over what we worked so long and hard to build.
Interesting.
And then you cut to a Sith who's doing his training, and he's maybe in a rivalry with another Sith, and they're running their Padawans or whatever the Sith have, doing this obstacle course, and our hero's about to win, but instead of winning, he sees a cat that's in danger, and he decides to forfeit the win to save the cat.
Good idea.
I think then we would start liking our Sith.
Yeah, because
right from the start, because he saved a cat.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
I think I just made that up. I think honestly, I should.
I haven't seen that anywhere. Yeah.
I've never heard of that happening before.
Yeah, put it in a book.
I do like
put
that.
Put it in a book,
idea.
and it'll be a bestseller, and it'll change the world.
And name it Star Wars. And it will.
Star Wars. The bad guys are the good guys.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I've got a pitch for you guys.
All right, let's hear it.
It also follows Han Solo.
Oh, yes.
But not that Han Solo.
Huh?
Oh, baby, let's go!
I'm talking about
so on board.
Han Seoul, as in Seoul, Korea, -O. That's right.
Which is his canonical last name.
Canonical name.
Wait, is that really his
Han.
name?
Yeah, it's shown on a computer screen.
Oh, man. I did not realize that was his last name.
Yep. Han from The Fast and the Furious is one of arguably the best characters in the whole franchise.
Totally.
That's great.
He's very chill. He's very relaxed. He is munching on chips. He pulls Gal Gadot. He's a mentor to some hick from the United States.
From backwater, wherever.
Wherever. Well, he's a resident of Japan. But he kind of just joins out of the blue as part of the crew in the fifth movie, in Fast Five. And you don't get a lot about his character before then. And so I'm saying let's take a character that we all love, that has a couple key identifying things that he does. Sure. I'm not saying we should have a big moment where he's like, I actually like chips. I want to just start eating them.
Now I eat chips.
Now I eat chips because of this
Absolute
episode
garbage.
or this part of the movie. But let's do a prequel show. Let's show a kid. I mean, there's a whole canvas that is blank, basically, that we can draw upon and tell a really good human story set in this fantasy world.
The fantasy world of Fast and Furious.
Bro, if it doesn't get more fantasy.
It really doesn't.
It used to not be, but it is.
now, yeah.
You know, maybe, obviously, he grows up to be a criminal. When he's introduced, he is a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's very much like a... Why do I keep thinking about Star Wars? A young Boba Fett, right? Working with the big timers, right? Maybe it's a baby driver thing. He's the getaway driver for a crew or something like that. All I'm saying is this world does not need a lot of depth
In order to be interesting,
Yeah.
a good movie.
You just need to have some sick races, some really cool, maybe high scenes, and you've got this kid, running with the dogs,
Running with the hogs.
so to say.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yes.
that's my pitch. Is just a Han Solo movie,
Nice.
and maybe it's
Oh, yeah,
called
absolutely.
Solo.
That would be cool to have a good solo movie.
Yeah.
But
So
I'm on board 100%.
I mean,
totally
we've already
am.
gotten
I'm
one
totally am.
spin-off,
yeah, might as well.
which is Hobbs and Shaw.
Hobbs and
and Shaw.
One.
Which are characters that warrant much less of a spin-off
Yes.
than Han does.
Yes, absolutely.
True.
But The Rock is more famous, and therefore he gets to do what he wants.
That's true.
That's true. Bro, Moana's going to be so good. Not
So
Moana
good.
2,
No,
but
Moana live action.
Moana.
So
live
good.
action.
2026
Can't wait.
cannot come soon enough.
Moana
Cannot
2026.
So good. Oh, I cannot wait. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
like
so
Blade
good.
Runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the title of the movie. Moana 2026.
Oh man. So yeah. Well, maybe we should bring it back to House of the Dragon
Yeah,
just for a
sorry,
second.
I
Interesting.
did-
Yeah, we had some good asides. It was very interesting, good conversation. But with House of the Dragon,
Segway Sigma right here.
yeah, let's hear a great segue coming out of my mouth. With House of the Dragon coming out in
No,
June.
he's a Segway surfer.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Segway surfer. And none of us have read the book, which is Fire and
Nope.
Blood, which I did look up
Yeah.
and verify. So
Right.
that
I'm not going to read that. It's a waste of time. They're making a TV show.
exactly. Who's
Yeah.
going to read that when you can watch? And so, with none of us having read that, but interested in where the story continues, where do you want it to go?
Yeah.
What do you want to see with season 2? And I think they said they're probably going to do like 4 seasons. And I think that is good. I think if they end on season 4, that'll be great, because these other 8 spin-off series will probably take too much time. But
Lucas, I just want to tell you, that's an absolutely bussing question.
thank you.
It is.
And I can't
No
wait
cap.
to answer it.
No cap?
For real.
Wow.
For real.
No cap.
You've never no capped me before. I like that.
Yeah.
On God.
Thanks.
I think.
What about on John?
Oh, yeah. No, Jared sounds like he's locked and loaded. So
I'm locked. I'm loaded. Here's all I want. I want to start loving a character, whoever it is. Don't care. Make me love someone, and then I want you to put a dagger through their back. You know what I mean? I want some brutal, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching scenes where those who are pure of heart and who truly maybe have no ounce of greed in their body in this story where there's so much greed and lust for power, I want that person to get their shot and to die because of it. I want people to not play the Game of Thrones, and I want them to pay for it. I don't really have any specifics on characters. Yeah, I mean, cool dragon stuff would be cool,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the
True.
characters we have are fun and interesting already. And so just clashing, we're going to get a lot of that. But I really want one person to show up who's just pure of heart.
Yep.
And to just get treated like trash because they are a pure-hearted soul.
What about Daemon Targaryen?
That's all I want.
He's pretty pure-hearted.
Yeah,
I want him.
He's a good guy.
I want those also who are the opposite, the lustful for power, the disgusting, like treacherous, horrible people, maniacs. I want them to succeed.
Yeah.
Because that's what Game of Thrones is, baby. I want to hate someone and I want to love someone and I don't want to get my way.
Yep. Yeah, you got to have a Ned Stark in there.
Totally.
Because Ned Stark, I think, is totally that character.
That's the thing. I was going to say, there is always, at some point in Game of Thrones, someone who you're like, okay, this is the good guy. I want this guy to be doing well.
Yeah.
And then
whether, Jon Snow, Ned Stark, all of these different characters that are like, this is the good guy. This is the guy whose team I'm on. One of my problems with House of the Dragon is that so far it's just kind of been, okay, here are all the players. And you like Rhaenyra because it's been focusing on her. But even she's just like making just questionable decision after questionable decision. And it's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, on the other side of it, of what Jared said, which is, I want there to be good people that die and then bad people that succeed. I want there to be a villain like Joffrey. That's like, okay, this is a guy that I know we need to get rid of. And then we get rid of him, you know? Yeah. But here's the other thing. On the other side of that, we're building toward the culture of the Targaryens facilitating someone like the Mad King. Therefore, I think we need a good character that maybe doesn't die, but has a fate worse than death, which is this house should be run in a noble way, in an honorable way, and around this character, the house is just getting more and more... what's the word I'm looking for? I don't have it, but basically it's just falling. Yeah, it's desecrated, basically. Just getting anything sacred or honorable about this family is going away, while this one character, no matter what they do to try to make it better, it just keeps getting worse until, if season 4, because we're already doing time jumps with this show, I would prefer that we stopped time jumps because it makes it feel like you're in a prologue. But if they kept doing time jumps and we saw every phase of this time, the house basically just getting closer and closer to the Mad King, and a position where that's like something that maybe not just the Mad King wants, but the Mad King's advisors, the hand to the king. Maybe it was a lot to do with what the hand of the king was doing at that time. I think that basically we need to see this house getting worse.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to see.
Interesting. Huh.
Because right now, especially with Viserys, he was an honorable king.
Yeah.
Like, he was great. He was Viserys the Peaceful.
He was just crusty.
He was crusty.
He was very crusty.
Which is a pretty big character flaw.
Now that he's gone, but now that he's gone, we have a really awesome opportunity for a character to show up and be the hope of the kingdom and then not get the throne because it goes to someone worse.
Yeah. I also really just want to see more Eye Patch Kid Aemon.
Oh, yeah.
Just doing anything.
With the craziest shaped face I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, homie.
He looks like a drawing. Yeah, he looks like a drawing come to life.
I do like... I love the feuding within the family, because it's cool to see it in Game of Thrones.
The family feud,
the show.
I want Steve Harvey.
I want him to show up. It's fun to see it between the houses.
Show me incest
in Game of Thrones, but to see it between
69 points.
between them combating, like, who is going to inherit the throne. that I think was really cool, especially like with Rhaenyra being named the heir, and they're like, oh, now we can have sons, and so blah blah blah. But it's like, no, actually, it's still her, and just all the discord that causes is great. In terms of what I am looking forward to in the future seasons, I honestly, because I don't have a lot of kind of knowledge of these characters outside of season 1, I am just really hoping they just continue to, especially with season 2, I just hope there's brutal, bloody battles and action sequences akin to like the Battle
Sick
of the
alliteration
Bastards.
there, by the way.
Thank you very much. Battle of the Bastards also a bit of an alliteration.
Dude, you're killing it right now.
I think the coolest fight we did get was on the beach with like the crab people.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was
And,
sick. Damon,
that was pretty cool,
I think,
but-
is my favorite character. Not because he's, the Ned good guy, but he's just very interesting. His character
great,
and motivations. And Matt Smith kills
And
it.
also Matt Smith.
Yeah, so
I was
good.
Gonna say.
And so just kind of seeing how Rhaenyra reacts to her son getting chomped is going to be super, because they kind of ends with her beginning to react to that, but we didn't really see it out. And so just seeing her retaliation against the other Targaryens as she's like, all right, you know what? I was going to try and be nice and not fully invade immediately, but screw that. We're doing this. And we're fighting.
She's going to go Eduardo from The Social Network. I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for all of it.
Exactly.
Just full declaration of war. And it's going to be a cool second season.
I'm really looking forward to it.
But freaking, Aemon with this skyscraper-sized dragon.
I know,
Yeah.
dude. That,
It will be insane.
is it
How do you
Vagar or
beat
something?
that?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
crazy.
something like
yeah,
that.
stuff like that I just
How do you fight
was
that?
not expecting.
Oh
With
my
with
gosh.
him getting that dragon after the mom burns herself up, and then with that dragon, chomping the younger dragon and the younger Targaryen. Pretty dang cool. Like, I not at all expecting that
so
stuff.
cool.
And that's the type of stuff I love with Game of Thrones. Like,
Shocking.
with the Red Wedding, all that stuff. It's just exciting, unexpected violence that I'm just like, yes, give it to me. I love it. I love to see it.
Go.
I love to see
Yeah.
it. So I'm looking forward to them hopefully continuing to do the same in season 2 and beyond.
So, HBO, if you're listening, which you are, just remember, we like violence in a swordplay way. We don't like violence in a complicated childbirth way.
Yes.
if you
that
can
is
avoid
not. that
That's
is not
true.
what I'm.
We've done that. We've seen it.
We're good.
The stage
we
is
got
set,
that.
my friends. You did
We
really
did
awesome.
enough
Yep,
of that.
it happened, and then it's over. That
you-
happened already. So don't.
Can't
do
really
more of
top
it.
it.
Yes.
Yeah, you already
Please don't
did it.
try.
Please don't. Please do not try to do that.
So, before we kind of wrap up and move on here, I just wanted to recap what we have to look forward to in the Game of Thrones
Here's what we
universe.
learned
Here's
today.
what we learned. Not exactly recap, but just kind of go over what we got to look forward to in the Game of Thrones universe in terms of various stages of development for these HBO shows.
Oh, other shows.
Other shows, exactly. So
Yeah.
this is A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, the Hedge Knight, that I think is going to start shooting this year. About Duncan Egg. Apparently, people care about that character, and so that's exciting for some
Wait,
people.
aren't those two characters?
Dunk and Egg. Yeah.
and Egg.
Yep. And then
I've read an article.
I've read an article too, and
They said Dunkin' Egg.
D-U-N-K, like Dunkin'
We've
Donuts.
got Dunkin' Idaho.
Dunkin'
Now
Check
Egg.
out
Egg for.
Dunkin' Egg.
So the other one is a 9 Voyages and 10,000 Ships spinoff. Don't know what that's about, but could be cool. There's an animated drama coming out, which could be pretty cool.
I am down for anything animated.
Yeah,
honestly.
that's great.
I guess they've included the books here for some reason, which is not not what I was looking for.
Guys, did you know
Did
that
you know
they
there's
turned
more-
that cool show into some
Into
books?
some books.
Dude,
It's
they
like-
did that with Dune also.
What?
Yeah, that's
Crazy.
Whoa.
I just started reading it. It's back there on my blanket.
Oh.
very cool. And then there
Yeah.
is a Jon Snow centered sequel series. That you heard that right, sequel to Game of Thrones. Because remember how interested you were in what he does on the other side of the
The
wall
way
after
that
getting
ended
banished.
and-
The best
Yeah, how
possible
fun
ending
and
for his character.
Perfect ending.
Perfect ending. Yeah, aren't you excited to see more of what we already got like 6 seasons of.
I just want more Bran the Broke.
Yeah. Oh, same.
Can we get more of that?
So
is that a spin-off show that we're getting? It's just a
not yet announced. Not yet announced, but it could
a political
be.
drama.
It could be.
It's like,
dude, we should do. You know what we need? We need a West Wing style, like Westeros wing, and it's Bran the Broken and all of his advisors just trying to run the
Westeros wing, bro.
Westeros
so
wing.
Funny.
Call up Aaron Sorkin. It's happening.
The 6 kingdoms now that the 7th kingdom was
able
to
to
just
7. I thought it was 9.
9 realms is Thor. Because you remember from end of Game of Thrones, there's
and
7.
the 9 hells from Dungeons and Dragons. I think is probably what I was thinking.
And then, man, the Starks are just
the 7 Seas.
7 Seas as well.
7 Seas is cool.
Mm-hmm.
From nautical
world, pirates.
So, from what I can tell from this as well, apparently the Jon Snow sequel series is being pitched by Kit Harington. So that to me sounds like he's just wanting to have another steady income from this, and who knows if it'll happen.
His Marvel bet didn't turn out.
It didn't quite pay out. At least not yet. So.
Well, he will be. He's supposed to be.
He'll be in something eventually.
Blade,
it's just
right?
a longer.
He'll probably be in Blade, but Blade is basically
back,
in production hell.
Yeah.
It's like technically has a release date, but like it doesn't have a director right now, and they're not filming. And
it'll come out eventually.
Well.
Hope probably.
And it'll be good. It's gonna
straight
be so
to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Blade limited series. It's gonna be 2 episodes.
And then the final one is currently in development is Aegon's Conquest, which is a prequel to House of the Dragon, about how the Targaryens came to power pre.
Bro, how far back are we going?
I don't know, but for some reason they thought that would be a good idea to spin off when we already have a Targaryen show that's good. So.
Yeah,
I would bet that
right
maybe
now,
1 or 2 of these happen. I mean, the night one is going to happen because it's about to shoot. The other ones, I think, are incredibly unlikely. I could see a sequel series happening to Game of Thrones, but I doubt it's a Jon Snow sequel series. But who knows? Maybe we'll find something.
McQueen.
Yeah.
McQueen.
Well, hey, you know who hasn't watched anything that we've talked about today? My mom. Shout out to Kel.
Shout out to
all
Kel.
you listening out there, you're going to be real excited because there is a new name on the list that I'm about to read.
Let's go.
So, shout out to Kel. I'll do it in reverse order so the new name comes very last.
Wow.
Shout out to Kel from Hannah Steed, Ian James Martin, Riley Allen, Britton Inkley, Easy Lob, Michael Polonsic, Nick Bell, and Roan Oberg. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. Shout out to Kel from you guys. If you listening didn't hear your name, you can shout out my mom, Kel, also by supporting us on Patreon. $3 a month. You get to shout out my mom, and you get bonus episodes on our Patreon. So check that out. Give us good ratings. Follow us on InstyPost for potentially some giveaways that are coming up, maybe perchance.
We've talked about one that's very fun.
Paying attention to some giveaways that are coming up, maybe perchance.
Also, for a limited time, if you join our Patreon, you could be on an episode of this podcast with us.
That's true. That's true.
If we
our
like
Patreon
the topic,
supporters can pitch us topic ideas to be a guest episode person character for.
Us.
So yeah, please do that. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. 1 listen
is 1
equals
kiss.
1 listen. So thank you so much for doing that. And we'll see you on another Man Cave Movie Night Monday.
Bye.
Bye.